We're going to take a moment to recognize Clyde Martz. We have decided this year to name our annual summer conference after Clyde because of the enormous contribution that Clyde has made to the field of natural resources law. I first met Clyde Martz when he became the solicitor at the Department of the Interior in 1980. I was a very junior attorney in the office of the solicitor at that time. It was not the kind of position where one gets to meet with the solicitor very often. But I happened to write a brief. It was a draft brief on a constitutional issue that came up under the Federal Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act, and somehow the draft brief came across Clyde's desk. And I got a note from Clyde basically saying that I needed to come down to his office. And I didn't, again, usually get notes from the solicitor inviting me to come to his office, so I wasn't sure what it was about. And it turns out that he fundamentally disagreed with my analysis of the constitutional issue. But rather than just rewriting it or having someone sort of just throw my draft brief in the circular file, he invited me and just genuinely wanted to talk about. He wanted to brainstorm with me. Why did I think this? Why did he think something different? And it was just a remarkable thing for a junior attorney to have an encounter with someone in that senior position. And I guess I felt that he genuinely wanted to know my views and was respecting of the views that I had regarding the particular issue. I don't remember even how we resolved it at the end. But the one thing that I came away with, I guess, from that short encounter with Clyde was that for Clyde, it wasn't about winning the argument so much. It was about sort of the art of lawyering. I've rarely met someone who enjoyed the practice of law as Clyde enjoyed it. And he particularly enjoyed, I think, engaging young people in their pursuit of the law. And it's in part, I think, that memory that we want to honor in naming our summer conference after Clyde. I'm just going to introduce this first video clip in which Clyde talks about how he first came to Boulder. So let's watch.
I did have an offer from a firm I'd been impressed with in the past, Davis, Graham and Stubbs in Denver. And I got in touch with them and say, I'm available now. I can come out on my honeymoon and start working on my job. And the senior partner said he's sorry. Since they last contacted me, another young man had come along, Byron White, who was a star at the University of Colorado, and they were going to give the job to him. So there I was without a job. A young man at the office, when I was interviewing the Davis, Graham and Stubbs people, told me to go up and see the dean of the law school in Boulder because he would know of openings around and could make recommendations to me as to where to go. I should advise you that by that time I had changed my attitude about law completely. I wanted to practice law. I wanted to convict all of the guilty sinners. I wanted to keep the rich from abating the poor. All the lovely goals that one can dream of as a lawyer. So I did go up to the University of Colorado and met with the dean of the law school. And he was in a jam that could not have existed accidentally. I feel that God must have been involved somehow in the action, because he was facing classes in about two to 3 weeks, and the man he had employed to teach 3 dog courses. Had to withdraw because of the elevation of Boulder, Colorado. And so the dean gave me a 1-year appointment to teach 3 courses, and I was excited.
This is truly a wonderful occasion to be able to dedicate this conference to Clyde Martz. And I'd like to just say a few words about Clyde. You've heard in his own words how he found his way to the University of Colorado Law School as perhaps the second best job that he thought he could get at that time, having been preempted by the late Justice Byron White, who got the chair at what became Davis, Graham and Stubbs firm. When Clyde was assigned these initial courses to teach, they were, of course, not courses that he had ever heard of or taken at Harvard Law School. Oil and gas, natural resources, these subjects that are almost synonymous with Clyde himself today, the professional, were unknown to him. In his characteristic way, he dug in, not only learned these subjects, but became the master of them and recognized nationally for that. He wrote the first book in natural resources law 60 years ago. Clyde was a visionary and did lay the cornerstone for founding that field. Notably, Clyde was the one who took forward the idea of clinical learning. Clinics are now a very important part of legal education. We have 10 of them here at the University of Colorado Law School. The roots were planted by Clyde Martz when he was professor and acting dean. He went to the Supreme Court of Colorado and got approval for a student practice rule that allows students to this day to go into court representing clients under the supervision of their clinical professors. Clyde never stopped being a teacher and a mentor, but he was a powerful practitioner as well. One of the cases we teach in our public land law course is Leo Sheep, a case that Clyde took to the United States Supreme Court and amazingly won. Clyde was, of course, teacher, mentor, practitioner, but he was always a public servant. Intermittently, throughout his career, he was lured into public service, usually being tapped by the President of the United States or the Governor of Colorado. He headed many commissions and sat on others. Notably, he was Assistant Attorney General under Robert Kennedy. He was later appointed Solicitor for the Department of Interior by President Carter. He was Executive Director of the Department of Natural Resources, appointed by Governor Roy Romer. He was a constant inspiration to all of his students for his commitment to public service, and that tradition, we hope, we carry on nobly today at this law school. What we remember him for most fondly today is his role in creating the Natural Resources Law Center itself. He was involved in the founding. He was on the founding advisory board, a group of people brought together, practitioners and educators in the field of natural resources law. Clyde, of course, was an indispensable member of that board. Clyde is a personal hero of mine. He began his work here, defining the field of natural resources law, founding the Rocky Mountain Mineral Law Foundation, living a commitment to public service, and inspiring young lawyers in the rigors and joys of practice, especially in natural resources law. We now rededicate to Clyde O. Martz this series, to the inspiration of quality and balance that Clyde inculcated in us from the beginning, from the founding of the Natural Resources Law Center. This is the first Clyde O. Martz, Natural Resources Law Conference. Clyde has honored us for more than 60 years. It's our turn to honor Clyde.
I think we're moving into an age where we're going to become short in some resources and in other resources internationally as well as nationally. We're going to have to make changes in our law as we go along. And we've made changes in the past largely on political grounds. It's a political issue. And the results of legislation changes is the prevalence of a point of view for political reasons over other views on solutions. What we now have is a widespread international interest and concern for resource development. And what I have always thought, and yes, with the Natural Resources Law Center, is that it is a vehicle of interests that are non-political in character, where smart contributors give thought to how the best solution may be to a particular resource problem in its development. And when they think it through and come up with a non-partisan plan, it has a chance of becoming, seriously becoming, the guide for the future. So I would encourage the Natural Resources Law Center to shape itself so that it is represented by viewpoints nationally and internationally affecting all the foreseeable future allocation of resources in the world. And in that process, the center will become a very valuable unit internationally and domestically.
We want to thank the center for honoring Clyde by naming this annual conference after him. We know that Clyde believes in the mission of the center, as he says in the video, and as you'll hear him say in a few moments in the last clip. The center will serve as a forum for collaborative policy development on the challenging issues of the day affecting natural resources development. What I wanted to do in the few minutes available to me is to talk about what Clyde meant to us, those of us who had the extraordinary good fortune to work with him in the private practice. You've heard about the many accomplishments of his remarkable career, how he excelled as a teacher and a practitioner and in public service, how he helped to found the Natural Resources Law Center and the Rocky Mountain Mineral Law Foundation. But those accomplishments don't really paint a picture of the kind of man that Clyde is. Aristotle said that teaching is the highest form of understanding. And Clyde is, above all else, a teacher. He teaches everyone he encounters, even his adversaries, in his gentle but powerful way. And he brings us all to a higher level of understanding. As a practitioner, where we worked with him, he was without peer. He was, of course, an expert in all the disciplines of natural resources law, and his practice reflected that broad reach. Working for Clyde, you never knew if you were going to be working on an international oil and gas transaction, or a mining project, or a water law case, or a public lands controversy. And that was the fun of it, as daunting as it was. He worked on cutting-edge cases, such as the Fellhauer case, which involved difficult and unprecedented questions of integrating water wells with surface rights. Clyde's work on that case literally revolutionized Colorado water law and helped to establish the principle of maximum utilization of state water as the corollary to prior appropriation. You mentioned the Leo Sheep Company case. I went with Clyde to the Supreme Court to argue that case, which involved a claimed right of the government to cross the corners of checkerboarded land to get from one government section to another. Significant issues of access to public land were at stake, as were important issues of the sanctity of private property rights. The court unanimously denied the government's claim and vindicated the property rights of Clyde's rancher client. Chief Justice Rehnquist was quoted many years later as saying it was his favorite case during his time on the Supreme Court. In all these cases, Clyde faced daunting odds and was given little chance of succeeding. Yet he won them. He did so by teaching the court how the law should work. Always the teacher, he made each project a learning experience, and in doing so, he taught us all how to be lawyers. But his teaching was more than intellectual. He taught us about commitment, integrity, and humility, the hallmarks of our profession. Regardless of the matter or the client, Clyde was always the same, and this is really the true measure of the man. Notwithstanding his sheer brilliance, he was always humble, self-effacing, quick to deflect credit and entrust responsibility to the lawyer working with him, completely dedicated to his clients and their causes. He truly loved what he did. In fact, as he told us several times in taping the video, he claims he never worked a day in his life. He simply never regarded what he did as work. He regarded it as a privilege, a great joy, and a wonderful challenge. He did everything with boundless enthusiasm and limitless energy. He was relentless and formidable in advocating his clients' causes, but he was also practical in seeking achievable results. For all his intellectual brilliance and creativity, he believed in practical, collaborative approaches to dispute resolution and problem solving, and we'll see some of that in the next clip. Henry Adams said that a teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops. Clyde affected all of us who worked for him, and his generations of students, and the thousands who benefit from the programs at the Natural Resources Law Center and the Rocky Mountain Mineral Law Foundation. His influence on natural resources law and policy is beyond measure. His influence on our lives has been a continuing gift. We are all blessed to have had the opportunity to work with him. We thank the Center for allowing us the opportunity to say so publicly and for honoring him with this conference.
I won't be here 20 or 30 years, but if I were, then I've stated what I hope to see. Namely, a thought going to a solution of an identifiable problem without opting for litigation. And I think your center is an ideal means of reaching a desirable end. But that just underscores the need for having an organization like yours that will address the issues and find solutions instead of just using the political goal of saying that the proposal is by Party A and we're Party B, let's get after it. I hope to be here to see the achievements that you all make. You've got a challenging road ahead. Thank you.